Welcome to episode 2 of Temple Hoops Insiders here, presented by WHIP Sports Radio. My name is Matt Dinenberg. I'm once again joined by Jake Gabel. We have a lot more to talk about today here on episode 2. Last week we talked about we had a couple games canceled, so we had no actual games to break down. So we talked about the preview of this upcoming 2022 portion of the season and last year. Today, we're going to break down their game yesterday. By the time we're taping this yesterday, where Temple just lost by 5 to the number 12th ranked team in the country, Houston, which is their first game in over 2 weeks. And also we're going to break down on our second half of our show, we're going to break down the 2 games this upcoming week, which is UCF on Wednesday on the road, and then back at Liacouras Center Saturday against East Carolina. So that's our show today. So Jake, first of all, how are you doing before we get into the actual action?
I'm doing good. Just had New Year's from the taping, but that's still relevant, I think, once we post it. Oh my gosh, 2022. That's weird to say, but I'm ready for a new year. How about you?
It's nice to see everyone here in 2022. It is crazy that Temple has played their first game in 2022. So let's just get right into it, Jake. They played, as I said, the 12th ranked Houston yesterday at Liacouras Center. A game that was a weird game to kind of discuss because both teams were really shorthanded. Temple was already without the top player, Khalif Battle, but then Jake Forrester was out with a non-COVID related illness. And then Ty Strickland was out with a back injury. He was a game time decision. He went to be out with a back injury. So that's arguably, without Battle, those are probably, if you include Battle, those are 3 of probably the 4 best players on the team. So that was a big issue for them. And then Houston just missed their top player, Marcus Sasser. He had the same injury as Battle, so he's done it for the year. And they also missed, I believe, 3 or 4 players, key players as well. So both teams were missing many key contributors, and it was going to be a tough game to really discuss. But it seems like both teams actually looked a lot cleaner. It was actually not as sloppy as a game as I think a lot of people thought. But let's break this game from a Temple Hoops insider point of view. So obviously, as we said, no Ty Strickland, no Battle, no Forrester. How did you think they looked, Jake, without those 3 couple players?
I'll be honest, it didn't really show. I mean, we've seen no Battle for a good bit, so we kind of expect what to see. The offense has changed a little bit. It's Damien Dunn's been getting like the main scoring role, and he's done really well in it. No Ty Strickland, that changed it with Isaiah Miller getting minutes. He normally doesn't get any minutes. He's a freshman, and Ty Strickland is just a really good scorer off the bench. So Isaiah Miller, I thought he did really good in that role. You couldn't tell he was a freshman who doesn't really get minutes much. You'd think he's a normal rotational player by the way he played. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but it was solid minutes. And then with Forrester out, they went with Erasmus Parks in the starting lineup. That was a surprise to me because they do have Nick Jourdain, he's been on the bench for some game, coming off the bench for some games and starting in others. He's kind of been, the other big man with Jake. So Erasmus got some good minutes as well. It was tough for Erasmus, mainly because of the opponent, though, because Houston is the best offensive rebounding team in the conference, and I think they're top 20 in the nation as well. So even though Houston was missing some players, they were more perimeter guys. So the main Houston guys were, in there, gobbling up rebounds and putting a lot of pressure inside. So, that's not an Erasmus Parks problem only. That was Temple the entire game, no matter who was in. But I think it just made it a little harder for Parks because he had a tough matchup, definitely.
I think that's a great way to start because Houston had 20 offensive rebounds. I'm shocked actually Temple had 11, which I don't think a lot of people were talking about. But as you said, Temple got out-rebounded 9 on the offensive glass and 10 overall. So you could kind of feel that, even though Houston was shockingly not taking advantage of those opportunities, it just kills momentum that Houston kept getting offensive rebounds. And as you said, they started Parks and Jourdain. And for me, it has never felt like McKee was set on one clear 5 group of men the entire game. It just felt like every 2 minutes a new person would come in. Parks had 17 minutes. Nick Jourdain had 24 minutes. A lot of that was due to his foul trouble. He did foul out late in the game. Sage Tolbert only played 19 minutes as well. So they really were really small. And as you can tell, this team, even though Jake Forrester, the way we talked with each other about Jake Forrester, is a very divisive player with us, a very on and off type of player. You still need his presence with this team, especially when you're without Battle. And you could really feel the team doesn't have enough size when Forrester's not playing consistently. I think I talked about this even on the radio for months now, how they just all kind of feel like they're the same height. And yesterday was the first glaring example of just everyone just feeling like the same person rebounding wise. And Houston just completely dominated with size. And that kind of, I thought, put them over the top for the most part. With Fabian White, who had 15 points and 14 rebounds, had a really, really good game. No one really dominated the glass other than him. Really, he had 14 rebounds. The next guy had 6. But it just felt like Temple was just getting out hustled in the first half for sure. There's a lot of loose balls. But I just want to go to your point as well. Hajir Miller getting 16 minutes. I thought they were really good minutes. Again, he's going to make mistakes. He made mistakes, but he had some really nice offensive moments, in my opinion. I think the one person I actually really want to talk about here is Zack Hicks, because I think we talked about this last week. He had his 10 threes. And it was a mixed bag for me this game for him. I loved his confidence. He definitely played with a lot more confidence shooting the 3 ball this game. I did think that faltered him from shot selection. He took a couple, I think there were 2 threes he took in the last 5 minutes of the game that killed Temple late when they were just down 2. He just chucked a 3. It felt like from like half. It was just he took a lot of deep threes that were just not good shot selections. So I did think Temple had a good game plan it was the first time actually I thought, I want to talk about this with Jake, Jeremiah Williams was penetrating and kicking it. And it was kind of the first time we saw that all year. And it felt like the last 5 minutes when Temple really faded away, he wasn't doing that. They were heavily reliant on just Dunn doing pick and rolls and him taking the tough shots. It was actually the first time I loved seeing Jeremiah drive, kick, and that's the play. Like that's how they start getting those open looks. So for me, I was actually really happy with the way Jeremiah Williams played yesterday. And I wish they kept going to him to drive, to penetrate late in that game.
Yeah. And I mean, sort of a side note, but it wasn't just Jeremiah Williams also doing that. And it almost was a bucket, but Jaleel White was also penetrating as well, but that eventually fouled him out of the game on a very controversial charging call.
Would have tied the game.
That was not a charge at all, and that would have tied the game with the Zack Hicks 3. From there, that kind of felt like the momentum killer.
That was it, yeah.
But going back to your question about Jeremiah, yeah, I thought he did play well offensively. I think that's how Zack Hicks got most of his 3-point looks.
Yeah,
at least the ones he made. Also about Zack Hicks, I didn't mind his shot selection as much. There was 1 3 I do remember vividly where he was probably a couple feet behind the arc and contested with like 20 seconds still on the shot clock and still took it. Yeah, that one I didn't like at all because I think that was like 2-point game, and like that's huge. Like late in the game too. Temple never had the lead the entire game, which is crazy because it was close the entire second half.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did like what I saw out of Jeremiah offensively, driving and kicking. I think that's a really good way to get players involved. Something that made me think of though was Jaleel White was a guy on the perimeter a lot who was left open, and this was asked in the post-game presser, but he was left open, and when he would get it, he wouldn't have anyone like too far on him, and he'd still kind of look at the rim and then decide not to shoot. And that was a problem for me because he was getting open looks. I know he's not the best 3-point shooter, and he doesn't have to take all of them. Definitely not.
Yeah.
But I felt like that kind of killed the momentum a little bit too, because you like work so hard to get a shot. Like sometimes it's a team effort to get a good shot. Like you said, like Jeremiah driving and then kicking out. It's not so much like ISO all the time. So once you get that good look, and then like Jaleel would kind of look at it and then decide not to take it, you kind of have to reset the entire offense again to find something, and that can be time consuming. So that's something that I definitely want to watch out for, because
Yeah.
I mean, he made a three, I'm pretty sure, in the
He made
game.
a three. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the best shooter, but I I think
I actually want to step it. That's a great point, because I do want to step in and say that I think the problem became for him. He would drive, and a lot of the times, Jake, when he was undecided, he would drive and get a charge. And I think that's where his fear factor would come in of the 3-point shot. His form is just not good. I mean, this is not good at the line or at the 3-point line. And it felt like for him and
banked in
Jeremiah,
a free throw accidentally.
yeah, he was actually shockingly all right from the free throw line yesterday. He went 4 of 6, which is a really good day for him. But it just felt like him and Jeremiah, every time they would shoot a jump shot, it would either go in or it would just not even hit the rim. Like, it was just such a mixed bag yesterday. And I think Jaleel was in such a bad position where, well, I want to shoot it, but the shot's not going. And then if I drive, I'm not getting rewarded for the drive with the charges. And that's where his dilemma came from, because he had 3 turnovers yesterday. And that was not compared. Damien Dunn had 7 turnovers. At least on my score sheet has 7 turnovers. We'll talk about that in a sec, but I agree with you. I think Jaleel White has to just mature at this point. Not now, obviously. This team is so young, and you can kind of see that yesterday with guys like Jaleel White kind of out of control, driving to the bucket. But I think it's a good sign that he actually is getting all these minutes in big time situations and actually not afraid to make the plays. It's just undecisiveness. But let's actually get to the 3-point shooting. I just want to get to. It was one of Temple's better 3-point shooting outings of the whole day, where the past couple weeks, it feels like every jump shot just there's a lid on the rim. If that was St. Joe's, if that was UCF. Yesterday, I mean, Nick Jourdain went 2 of 4 from 3, which was really impressive for Nick. Jeremiah went 1 of 4. Jaleel went 1 of 4. Dame went 2 of 5. Zach went 3 of 8 from 3. And then Hajir went 1 of 2. So everyone was pretty much efficient from the 3-point line yesterday. That was my biggest positive takeaway, is that the 3-point shot finally felt like it was going in yesterday.
Oh, definitely. I think that's the only reason they were in the game at that point, because Houston didn't really make a lot of threes. Like a lot of their points were either at the rim, or they actually made a surprising amount of mid-range shots too.
Houston went 4 of 22 from threes, 18%. Temple was 10 of 27, 37%.
Yeah, so I mean, I liked what I saw from the perimeter, and it kind of matched the style of play and game plan, because, they didn't have Jake Forster, and also they're going up against a team that's really good inside. So, being able to execute that game plan, I feel like if you want to avoid going inside, especially when you're getting charges drawn left and right, and also just not finishing at the rim in general, that was key, and it kept them in a game, and I hope it can carry over, because it was good shooting, and a lot of them were like timely threes. Definitely Damien Dunn, when I think both of his were like kind of like really brought on the momentum.
And Nick's too. Nick's 3 in that sequence.
Yeah, Nick's second 3. Yeah, and Nick, that's something I'm seeing expand more. I feel like he's getting a lot more confidence with his shot. Like, just in his game in general offensively. Like at the beginning of the season, he seemed very not raw, more timid with the ball. Like
he was a lot more around the bucket. He was a lot more around the bucket.
Yes. And I mean, I saw him taking threes like off the dribble too, not just like a standstill catch and shoot 3. Like, and also driving to the basket. As I mean, he's one of the bigger guys on the team, and he looked good doing it too. Like sometimes you can get a big guy try to drive and it just looks ugly, but it looked good even if it didn't go in every time. So that was definitely a positive takeaway. two from that.
Yeah.
But one thing about Houston that I saw, uh, Jeremiah Williams defensively, that was sort of the first time I've seen someone be able to put someone offensively
Yeah.
outmatch Jeremiah Williams' defense,
Mhm.
because he guarded a numerous amount of players, because I mean Houston had a grab bag of guys. They had 7 guys available, and 3 of their top 4 scorers weren't available. So you didn't really know what to expect. But it seemed like all of them could really get their shot in the ISO mid range. There's a couple where it just looked like they, turn around, fade away, end of the shot clock, mid range, and
It would
it
go
would just
in.
always find the bottom of the net.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's luck. I mean, they looked pretty while they did it, but yeah, it was probably the roughest game I've seen from him defensively. Not that he did bad or looked bad. It's just result wise, they made a lot of shots.
Yeah, and before I want to bring up this last point before we move into the preview of this upcoming week, but Damien Dunn and free throws, I think, were big factors in the game yesterday. Now, Damien Dunn did not really have that great of a game yesterday. He did lead the team in scoring. He had 14 points, 4 of 9 from the field, 4 of 6 from the line, 2 of 5 from three, but he had 7 turnovers yesterday, which was a huge issue with the team yesterday. That Damien, and also there were a lot of plays yesterday where Dunn would turn the ball over and then not get on the ground for the loose ball yesterday. That was a big issue that I saw. But also just the free throw shooting of this team is just not good. And it was actually pretty good in the first half, which kind of kept them in the game because they did not look great offensively in the first half. But when you're playing these type of teams, like they did this against USC, they lost by 5, and it's happening again against Houston. Temple shot, 11 of 18 from the line, which is not awful for them, but you can't shoot 61% against a top 15 team in the country and expect to win. But I do want to talk about Damien Dunn specifically because it seemed like while he struggled while on the court, really with the turnovers, when he was not on the court, the ball movement and the way that the Temple was getting their shots just was not good. And Damien Dunn's been in foul trouble the past couple games, and it's really costing Temple when he's not on the court as much. Because when Battle basically played the entire game. And the problem is Dunn is such a physical defender that Dunn gets into foul trouble really quickly. And when he's off the court, the team really struggles getting their shots.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to speak on his turnovers, Houston's just really tenacious defensively. They're so physical. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't matter who was out there. They just all had that same energy. And it was really impressive. Like, that's why they're the number 12 team in the country. That's why they made the Final Four last year. They were hounding defensively. But yeah, there are a lot of unforced turnovers in there that needed to be cleaned up. And yeah, the ball movement, Damien Dunn needs to be out there offensively. I mean, obviously not every minute, but he's so important. And I think one of his fouls too was a charge.
It was, yeah.
So again, like that's actually, now that I think about it, that's kind of been a theme for the Owls lately. They've been having a lot of like offensive possessions taken back due to charges.
Yeah.
It,
Good point.
I don't know. I mean, charges aren't something you can really draw up or
You
anything.
like the aggressiveness, but also they're
Yeah.
not being rewarded. That's what I was thinking. I don't think they're being rewarded at the moment for their aggressiveness because they really are all over the rim on the offensive side of the ball because they're just not a jump shooting team. But but keep going, Jay. I just want to say like they're just not a jump shooting team, and as of now, sadly, they're not being rewarded for their hard work towards the rim.
Yeah, and just to finish up on the offensive part, uh, that's where Ty Strickland would be really key when Damien Dunn's out. Then you have that guy that you can go to. I mean, like I said, Hysier Miller, I thought he did a good job. He had a stretch in there where he scored 5 straight points on a 3 and a nice layup. It was like a highlight play too.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's also just a freshman and he had his ups and downs. So yeah, definitely could have helped to have Strickland out there. But even with Strickland, there's always going to be that drop in offense when you don't have your leading scorer out there.
Yeah, and this was actually one of the first games where you could feel Ty's presence not there. He missed a lot of games earlier in the season, and I guess because of battle, it was very much under the radar that Ty was not playing. But yesterday, especially when Dunn, as I said, Dunn not being on the court, the team just did not look good at all, cohesive offensively. And that's where a guy like Ty Strickland comes in. He can get his own shot, drive, shoot a three. But also, I want to look at free throw shooting again because Damien Dunn just needs to be a better free throw shooter down the stretch. I know he went for 4 for 6, but I think he needs to get to the line more. And I think he needs to shoot at a higher percentage, especially late, because it feels like all of his misses at the line do come late in games, all of his misses at the line. He's shooting 83% right now, which is pretty good. I think for me, it's just volume at the line. Cause I think especially him being the go-to scorer for the team, he's going to get the best defender. He's going to get people all over him. And he's so good at getting to the rim. But all of a sudden, for some reason this year, he's shooting 84%. He just needs to get to the line more.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with, well, one, I think his expectations were raised super high with just how often he got to the line last year, because he was 5th in the nation in both makes and attempts, which is really impressive. So I think when battle, like Damien Dunn was the guy for all of last year, basically. Yeah. And at the start of the season, it was battle, definitely. Like by far, battle was the guy. And now that you have Dunn back as the guy because battle's out, I've seen him drive more, be more aggressive. I mean, I wish that was something we saw with battle too in the lineup with him, but I do think that he is going to do what you're hoping for and get to the line more, because he has more of a role in the offense. I mean, not that he didn't already, but he's the guy, and I think he knows how important getting to the foul line is.
Yeah, I think it was overall though very similar to the USC game, especially even more so that this is a conference ranked team. They really came out playing really well. You could tell both teams were clearly missing huge pieces. It's just such a tough game to evaluate because so many top players on each team were not there, especially for Temple when you basically have 3 of your top 4 key guys not playing. It's tough to evaluate a team, but Temple for sure is playing with a lot of heart this year in game. And as you said, you said this last week as one of your favorite things about the team is how their defense really keeps them in games. Even when they feel like they can't make a bucket, it just feels like they're in games. And that will help them this year, especially, but also heading into next year. But let's talk about, Jake, this upcoming week. So they are going to be facing UCF on the road. This is already their second meeting already. Even though it's their third conference games, they're second already against UCF. This one will be at UCF. And then they will play East Carolina on Saturday back at Leah's Core Center. So let's break down UCF first, then we'll go into East Carolina. As we talked about earlier, UCF beat Temple December 15th, 65-48. This was at Leah Core Center. We broke down this game in depth last week, so go check last week's episode to see that. But they basically lost. They were up 1 at halftime in a 19-18 game at halftime. And then UCF scored 47 to Temple's 29, plus 18 in the second half. That's where they win by 17. UCF is actually coming off a loss in conference play. I think this is also their third conference game. They lost to SMU on yesterday, 72-60. That was a road game for them. So let's break down this game. We obviously it does not seem like, based on the reports, that Ty Strickland will be able to play. It just seems very up in the air, just like last game. So we don't know. I have not heard anything on Jake Forrester. I think Jake could possibly say something about the press conferences yesterday, if there were any updates on those couple players. But this could be a tough challenge for Temple because UCF, they're very tough. They're also 9-3. They just beat you very recently. And if Temple is missing key pieces, this would be the game that it would bite them the most because they're not playing a team like Houston where many pieces are gone and they seem very even talent-wise. This time UCF is pretty much at full strength for this game. For them, they have actually no one on the injury report, so they're pretty much full strength, and Temple will not be. So how do you feel about this game heading in, Jake, on Wednesday?
Well, first, before I get into the game, just a couple of injury reports from McKee himself. Jake Forster was non-COVID related illness, so it wasn't disclosed what he had, but he was under the weather and not able to play. I mean, assuming that it's nothing too serious, he should be able to play in the UCF game because I mean, there's enough time in between where I think he should get better. But so I'd be surprised if he didn't play. Ty Strickland, he was called day to day, which would sound positive for this, but he's also missed a good amount of games already. So I take that with a little grain of salt just because he has the history. So they might be more cautious with him. But I think there is a chance that both of them play. But because we don't know, I'd say at least one of them plays. If I had to say, I have more confidence in Jake playing than Ty, though. Going into the game, though, it's weird because normally when you play someone at home and then you play them again on the road, you expect a worse outcome. But because of Temple's shooting just being so poor when they played UCF, I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier where it was one of those games where there's a lid on the rim. I think they're gonna perform better because they held them to 65 points, and I mean, you playing defense that good, you're gonna stay in games, and I think it would really take something bad to shoot that bad again. I mean, I know it's on the road, but Temple, besides Charleston, they haven't been that bad on the road. If you look at Vanderbilt, they won that game. It was an ugly offensive game for the Vanderbilt game, but
St. Joe's.
Yeah, but at the same time, they brought their defense with them. So
sure,
it's definitely going to come down to how well they shoot, and it's good that they're coming off of one of their better 3-point shooting games of the year going into that one.
Yeah, another problem I think Temple's been having is they've been fouling a lot. Like a lot of these games are really high volume, and you can't do that against UCF. UCF is the 12th best team in the country at the line, shooting 80% from the line as a team. So if Temple becomes an issue again of fouling, not just being an issue from a foul trouble point of view, they're going to get burned at the free throw line. And that's another issue they had yesterday is that, Houston was in the bonus so early in that game, both halves, that it just kills the momentum that UCF was just, and UCF at the line against Temple was 18-22 to Temple's 15-22. But again, as you said, I actually want to see Aaron McKee's lineup. I don't know if he really loves Parks in that lineup as of now. Because I've been a huge fan of the Sage Tolbert playing with Nick Jourdain lineup. I know that might limit Nick from the 3-point line. I don't think it does if you put Sage down low. I think that's the big issue. They've kind of made Sage the 4 in that lineup and Nick the 5. I think if you flip that could really benefit Temple from an offensive point of view, especially if Jake and Ty don't play and you just need offense. I think that's the way to go, because no offense to Parks yesterday, but Parks really struggled at the rim yesterday getting buckets, and that's what Jake kind of brings to the table. And when Akpomo's not playing, it's really tough finding offense. I think Temple, if they just commit small, I think it will benefit them, because even though they got killed on the offensive glass yesterday, Houston did not kill them with second chance points. So while they were getting killed on the glass, it wasn't like it was killing them in the game. So maybe if they just see that they can go small and still be able to compete, I think that's for me what I want to see, more of a Nick and Sage together with Jaleel, Jeremiah, and Dame. If let's just say Ty's not playing, that's the lineup. I also think it's interesting that Emmanuel did not Emmanuel. Akpomo didn't play. He hasn't been playing for a while because of injury, but Quincy didn't play at all yesterday. And that was really shocking, especially when you're missing a lot of pieces. Quincy's been starting and has been a quick 3-point guy. I wonder if Quincy gets back in the lineup, because it seems like it's infectious what's happening to the 3-point shooting. And you would feel like if everyone else is hitting threes right now, Quincy would be a part of that, don't you think?
Yeah, I think if there's a game to play him, it would be the game against Houston, because
Yeah.
I mean, you were shooting threes, and also you were just down two guys that soak up minutes. So yeah, that was surprising, but I think part of that comes with Isaiah Miller. He did well, and
Yeah.
I think if he didn't play as well, then we would have seen Quincy, but there wasn't as much of a need to see him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird because his first game where he got significant minutes, he hit his first two threes, and then he's gone absolutely stone cold since then. And I don't know. That's sort of he's also another guy with Sage Tolbert, who he was a starter in every game for about the first, I don't want to say 10, but around that. And his minutes has just decreased. It seems like McKee's going with the hotter hands right
Yeah.
now. And I think even though Sage hasn't shown anything, like you said, I think his veteran presence, like he doesn't really take the ball out of anyone's hands, so it wouldn't
No.
hurt you. And he's a good defender too. So I wouldn't mind that at all. I would like to see Nick Jourdain at the 5, because I'm more of a fan of the one big lineup. Sage can definitely bang down low, but you can have 5 guys out there that can shoot. I think that's really important.
I do. And also, again, I mean, UCF does have a starting center who is 6'11". So we'll see if that's a big issue. But I think the 3-point shooting just is how the team's going to be winning games or losing games based on the 3-point line, because they have the consistency needs to be there on a game-to-game basis. And luckily, it's the last 2 games. My real big issue with the team is we've kind of talked about it. We just never know what lineup or lineups or units are going to be out there ever on a game-to-game basis. It just seems so unknown. And I'm not a huge fan. That's like the only nitpick I have about McKee as a coach, is that the way he chooses players when they come in is just a little bit off some games. I get going at the hot hand totally, but it seems like each game, there's just a feel like there's a completely different lineup like every 5 minutes on the court. And it doesn't feel like there's any consistency with that, because you'll have Dame and Jeremiah. You'll have the starting line. Let's just give an example yesterday, right? So you have Dame, Jeremiah, you have Jaleel, you have Nick and Arashma. Like 2 minutes in, Zach's in. And then 2 minutes later, Sage comes in for Nick. And it's a completely different lineup, like 5 minutes into the game. I just want McKee to find his systems earlier so the team can just gel together on a more consistent basis. It just seems like each unit has completely different roles for each player. Like there's some units where Jaleel is going to be the one driving the action. There's also units where Jeremiah is the one driving the offense. Dame, and Ty is not even playing. So I feel like there's too many units with too many responsibilities at the moment for Temple.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And that's kind of the, positive and negative when going with the hot hand. The negative is what you just explained, where you never get consistency because, the guys you're playing with, but it's a difference when you're getting game minutes with them and just getting more comfortable in that role. On the other hand, when you go with a hot guy, then that's how you end up with 35 points from a guy off your bench who's a freshman in Zack Hicks. But I think it's tough because with Jake, if Jake and Ty were able to play, I think we would have saw a much more steady rotation out of there. I think that played into it, but it's not like even when they're healthy that there's been this steady rotation anyway. That's kind of why I want Sage to get that minutes like you do, because he was there in the beginning. And to bring a guy like Arashma in and start him, I know he's a big body and you're missing Jake Forster, but it feels just kind of unnatural to give a guy who's going from 0 minutes a game to here start and play 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, overall, Wednesday will be a tough game. I think we both know that, because also it's tough to evaluate because we don't know who's going to play. If Ty and Jake play, it's a totally different Temple team. But let's move on to ECU before we wrap up the show today. Another tough team, Jake. They're 9-3, but Temple might be catching them at the little bit of a right time. So they're going to play tomorrow. Wednesday against Tulane. Then that's a home game for them. Then they come to Temple on Saturday, but they have not played a game in 2 weeks with postponements. They had a postponed game December 29th against Wichita State, and January 1st, New Year's, against South Florida. Those are their last 2 games have been postponed. They have not played since a 1-point win over Southern Miss on December 21st. That's a long time ago. So by the time Temple plays them, they would have played 1 game in 2.5 weeks. So maybe they'll catch them at a wrong time, basically. Catch them at the right time, Temple is. But we have to really watch ECU on Wednesday because they're playing Tulane Wednesday. Tulane's not really going to be competing that much in the AAC. They're 5-6 overall. But Temple also needs to stay above 500 too. That's a big goal with this week. These are 2 really tough matchups. In my opinion, 2 really good teams that seem to be competing at a high level in the AAC. And Temple's currently stuck at 7-6. So for me, if they can win one of these 2 games, that'll be a big win. UCF is a big telltale of where they're going to set up for Saturday. But overall, East Carolina, what are your thoughts on East Carolina? And the fact that they haven't played in 2 weeks, do you think that's an advantage for Temple heading into Saturday?
Oh, it's definitely an advantage, because part of why Temple was able to stay close to Houston is because both teams their last game was December 22nd before the Houston game. And then they both had COVID outbreaks in their programs. And then they had a game or 2 canceled. And then that's why Houston only had 7 guys available to play. So with ECU, you got to take advantage of that. I mean, they might not have guys in protocol anymore, but that's a lot of practice time that they missed. That's a lot of just getting into your rhythm. Like, you got to go every day, and it's easy to make it feel foreign again. So I think Temple, especially at home in Philadelphia for that game, they always play up to the competition when they're at home. I think that's a sneaky chance to get a win against a team with a better record, because ECU Tulane will be their first conference game if they play that. And I don't really see too many impressive wins on ECU's schedule so far. The most impressive thing on their schedule was a loss to Oklahoma. It was only a 5-point loss. Everything else, I feel like Temple's schedule so far has been more challenging. So even though they have the same record as UCF, they're both 9-3 as of recording. I think that UCF's the better team. So out of the 2 games, I think ECU's more likely to get a win for Temple.
And you'd think by the time Saturday, even if they don't play Wednesday, you think for sure at least Jake would be back Saturday. And if Ty is truly day-to-day, he could probably be back Saturday as well. Again, by the time we're recording this, they're 5 days away from the ECU game. So if for some reason those 2 guys can't come back Wednesday, I think Saturday they could be pretty much back to as much full strength as they can be without battle. But again, it's interesting because it's all AAC play, and Temple just can't fall behind. They're already, even though you could say Houston was a moral victory, they're already off to an 0-2 start in the conference. And you don't want to start slipping too far down in the conference, because you can kind of feel it I guess we're kind of biased as we cover the team, but you can kind of feel a sense of a lot of these they really are competitive. And it does feel like if they keep slipping in the conference, the records might not show how truly tough they're playing and competitive with these teams. So you're kind of hoping sooner rather than later, the record starts to reflect how hard they're playing and the heart of the team, because they've had so many tough moral victories this year. But now we're at the point where we're January 2022, it's all conference play. And once you're not playing ranked teams, these are all, there's no more moral victories for Temple. They need to get wins now and try to be as competitive as you be. Do you feel the same way as me there?
Yeah, definitely. And I think also part of the moral victories is also because they're doing this without battle. And once we get more into the season, I mean, even now it's starting to no longer be an excuse because now you have several games where you haven't played with him. So I think these next two games are really big for them because if they end up losing both and they're 0-4 in conference play, that could just lead to a spiral for the rest of the season. So they need to pull out a win in at least one of these games.
Yeah, and as a conference play has already started, and ECU have a tough test because Tulane, even though they're 5-6, they're 2-0 in conference play, and those are their last two wins. So as it's weird kind of seeing some of these teams that have worse records than Temple kind of do well in the conference. So you're kind of hoping now Temple's at a point where they've had, I agree with you. I think the schedule, while yes, it's a tough schedule, especially without your best player, to go 7-6, I think was a big win for the program. Now they're at a point where the tough schedule should really benefit them playing conference play. And I guess the hope as a Temple reporter, like people who work for the team like we are, or for the radio and who cover the team and are fans of the program, we just want to see this team not just compete, but win. I think yesterday was kind of the last day, I think, for all of us that we felt like it was great to see Temple compete, great to see them at a high level against one of the best teams in the country on ESPN. Like that overall, there's nothing bad you can really take away from yesterday's game from a Temple point of view, especially without your best player. But now you're at a point where you're kind of done with these moral victories and feeling good about these losses. If Temple wants to seem like a legitimate threat in the AAC, which I think they really could be, I think they've kind of moved on and settled into their team without battle. If they want to be competitive in the conference, they can't keep waiting for these moral victories to turn into wins. They have to turn into wins now, and these losses have to feel like losses. And I think that starts on Wednesday. You just played UCF 2-3 weeks ago. You know exactly what they're going to bring to you. Even without Jake and Ty, I still expect Temple to be in that game more than they were last time.
Yeah, and with the moral victories, I think the only reason that it was still a moral victory for this game was because Houston had a number next to their name. They're number 12 in the country. Right?
Yeah.
Once you start playing unranked teams and then losing, I think that goes out the window. And then it's like, okay, you need to win now. It's like close game won't cut it anymore. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so this is the first basically week where it feels like, and I think both of us agree that Temple needs to come into their own. There's no more excuses. This is the team. This is the team that's going to be playing for the next 3 months. And Jake and I on this podcast, we're breaking it down every single Wednesday, every single week here on the YouTube channel and on Spotify. Next week, we're going to break down the two games we just previewed. We're going to break down both the UCF game and more importantly, obviously the ECU game, because that'll be more recent. But we'll break down those two games, how we thought Temple looked in those two games. Then we're going to preview the next couple of weeks. We're also going to preview the next two games. We'll preview the Tulsa game. That's the only game that will be played before our next recording. So we're going to break down the UCF East Carolina game, preview the Tulsa game next week on the podcast. Before we go, Jake, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Instagram at Jake to the Gabel, and then Twitter, Jake Gabel 6.
Nice. You can find me on Twitter at Dinenberg Max, Instagram at Max Dinenberg. Follow, go to WHAP Radio, search us up on iHeartRadio. We will be back on the air radio wise, just virtually, sadly, for at least hopefully not more than the first 2 weeks of the next semester. So next week, starting, I believe on the 10th, they should be back. We should be back doing virtual shows every weekday here on WHAP Radio. Definitely check that out. You can basically hear Jake and I also on those shows twice a week. Hopefully everything goes well COVID wise. We'll still be doing this virtually as long as Temple is not open, basically. Hopefully Temple opens in the next couple of weeks and we'll be back in person doing this. If not, we're still going to talk Temple basketball as long as the season goes on. So join us next week. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on Temple's schedule and your Temple predictions for this upcoming games. And like the video. That's how you support us. Really big. Gets more people checking out Temple. If you want to talk Temple basketball and your friends do, share the video. Let people know that we got a podcast for you, exclusively Temple Insiders. And on Spotify, give us a review, a rating, and comment. That helps us. The more ratings, positive reviews we get, the more we're out there in the Spotify verse, as they say. So thanks so much for joining us on episode 2 of Temple Hoops Inside. We'll be back next week, hopefully talking about some Temple wins and not moral victories.